Divided on a Monday. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Chad Hastings. We are here on Orange Bloods Live. Loving the fact that we get to be with you for the next hour, 2 hours. Text guy 2 called me an old, like, what's that word?
Curmudgeon?
Yes.
Wow.
Curmudgeon. I never say that word. So forgive me for not knowing how to pronounce it. Yes, I was you had to be there for the Overreaction Monday show, Chad, to fully appreciate the fact that apparently I was acting like I was 70. Welcome, everybody. Like, comment, subscribe, jump into the Specs chat. The water is warm. We will take your super chats if they are there. Interrupt us with whatever you want to talk about. That's okay. Again, I'm Jeff. That's Chad. We've got so much to get into in today's show. We've got AP Top 25 reaction that just happened. We'll be talking a lot of Texas scrimmage from the weekend. It was a show me day inside the Texas football program. So who really show me'd to Steve Sarkisian and that staff? We'll talk about that. Plus, I have a thought on the single biggest positive development of all of Texas training camp so far. And yes, we'll talk a little Michael Fasusi. Just how alarmed should Texas fans be with his decision date a mere 9 days away?
We start with the need of 20,000 subscribers. Catch will accept nothing less than 20,000 by the end of the week. It's not really that many to gain. We're not going to go into the individual number because that just makes Catch mad. We don't want to do that. What we need to do is get to 20,000 subscribers by the end of the week, and then the man on the left is going to smile a lot more. So tell everybody you know that digs the shows, but maybe they haven't become a subscriber yet. Just click on that subscribe button. It costs you nothing. It does a lot on our side of it. It could help us out a lot. We appreciate it. We appreciate it.
It's as simple as that. So Chad, let's real quick, before we get into Fasusi and the scrimmage, let's the breaking news of the hour is Top 25 is out.
Yep.
For me, there's not really any surprises because we had the coaches poll, and I feel like there's been so many rankings that we have an idea of what we thought the rankings would probably look like. Today's AP Top 25 kind of looks like what I thought it would look like.
Yeah. There was a lot that is exactly what you would expect. We'll share a screen here and show everybody kind of what it looks like, but this will not surprise you if you are a Texas fan, Georgia fan, Ohio State, Oregon, just everybody. I guess first thing to notice is Texas does not get any first place votes. Oregon gets one. Ohio State got a group of votes, and Georgia gets all the rest. So Texas sitting at 4. And then Catch, as we scroll down here, you're going to see names that you saw in the coaches poll: Bama, Ole Miss, Notre Dame. And as we get down to, so the top 10 obviously contains a Texas opponent. Michigan sitting there at 9. You've got Florida State in the 10 spot, Missouri sitting at 11. And as we go down here a little bit, you'll see Oklahoma and A&M, the two big Texas rivals, in the same spots. Oklahoma's at 16, A&M's at 20. It's exactly the same as the coaches poll. So Catch, as we look at the top of this, we've done this before, but let's play the game. How many top 10 teams does Texas play this year? They play Georgia, that's 1, and they play Michigan, that's 2. But if you're Oklahoma, how many do you play in the top 10? You play Ole Miss, Alabama, Texas, so you play 3 of the top 10. And then Oklahoma obviously does play the Missouri, the game, the LSU game, the Tennessee game. So Oklahoma's got 6 out of the top 15, and Texas would only have 2. So
I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh, Sooner fans.
Right.
It's just kind of funny.
We just continue to have that same theme, Catch, if you will, which is that Texas will be playing, certainly not, and there's no easy schedule for anybody, I think, in the SEC, but Oklahoma's getting a hell of a rude awakening joining the conference. Texas, top 5, coaches, AP sitting at number 4 in both.
Stop the presses.
Uh-oh.
We have a South End Zone Queen sighting.
Hey, there she is. What's up?
2 thoughts. 1, welcome back. She's been in Greece and just living the good life, Chad. I've never wanted to just be friends with somebody as much as I've wanted to be friends with South End Zone Queen, because if I could just hang out with her a little bit, cool people, cool places, good food. Like, come on.
I feel like it would be a good time. There's no doubt about it. South End Zone Queen.
Can I say one more thing? And this may be inappropriate, but when has that typically ever stopped me before?
Not once.
South End Zone Queen, I want to give you a compliment. Because I follow you on Instagram, kept up with the trip in Greece. I want to give you a volleyball clap for being in tremendous Greece on the beach shape. South End Zone Queen has like a six-pack going on, Chad.
Whoa.
That should be against the damn law.
Checking out South End Zone Queen.
Volleyball clap for South End Zone Queen.
All right.
I don't know how you do it, but damn, girl. I don't know anybody else in my life that's as in shape as South End Zone Queen. And by God, if you're going to go to Greece and hang out for a couple of weeks, you ought to look amazing while you're doing so. Mission accomplished.
Very nice. Very nice. Good to hear from South End Zone Queen in the chat. We've already got a super chat. Thank you, Oscar, for $4.99. I'd say A&M's schedule is easy. Sorry, Chad. Still all the love here. That's impossible, Oscar, because Texas is on the schedule. How could the schedule possibly be easy if Texas is on it? Right? I mean, come on. To your point, you got to play the right fight game, right? You can't be that kind of fighter that talks the other fighter down so much that we're all thinking, wait, so if you beat him, it's nothing? Like, come on. In terms of the fairness of the schedule for A&M, no Bama, no Georgia, no Ole Miss is going to be big for them this year. Are there parts of it that are reasonable? Sure. I would not call it easy. I would not call it easy. They have to start with Notre Dame. They have to go to Florida. If you can guarantee me they're going to win both of those games, I will sign wherever you need me to sign. I can't guarantee that right now.
Before we do anything else, the Reuben Owens thing, Chad.
Yes, sir. Reuben Owens out for the season with some sort of leg injury. It happened in the scrimmage on Saturday.
Seems like it's an ACL injury. Wild that he and CJ Baxter had. So they're both in the same recruiting class.
Mm-hmm.
Both regarded amongst the best running backs in the country in that recruiting class. So as one went to Texas and one went to Texas A&M, there was always going to be a side-by-side who got the better back. It kind of reminds me of like Ricky versus Sir Parker back in the day. There's always a side-by-side comparison, almost kind of like interchangeable.
How'd that one end up? Catch, just for the record. How'd that one end up?
It wasn't Sir Parker's fault that Ricky turned out to be one of the best running backs of all time. Like, Sir Parker was a good player, and Ricky Williams, Ricky became a guy that you only have to say one word. Ricky, like, he's a one-word guy, one name, and it's a little unfair. It remained to be seen what would happen in this side-by-side CJ Baxter, Reuben Owens. It still does. But in the same class, they both go to schools inside the state of Texas. They both played a lot last year as true freshmen and averaged less than 5 yards per carry in the process, which raised some questions about whether each of them was worthy of such a ranking. But they both come into this season with big expectations. The idea being that year two, watch out, like coming out like gangbusters, expected to be major pieces of both offenses. And then both within a couple of days suffer serious season-ending injuries. It's almost spooky how intertwined the similarities between them are. We don't spend a lot of time on this because I think everybody would rather us not talk a ton about Reuben Owens out of the gate. But I have to know your just reaction to that. Texas fans got a kick in the you-know-what on Thursday, and A&M fans got theirs this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to judge the comparison of the kick in the nuts, but it absolutely was that. He's one of the three guys they're looking for to step up. They've got a different situation than Texas does in that we've discussed it. None of those three guys have really stepped up, really become the guy. But Ruben was going to be a part of the discussion. Catch, you've talked about it. In this version of college football, you'd love to have a back at 5 yards of carry. That kind of be like when you and I were growing up. I mean, you'd love to have them at 6, sure. But
5 is for the minimum bar for me. You got to be above 5.
When we were growing up, I was always looking for 4 yards of carry, and I think it's just kind of notched up as
it's different in the NFL versus college.
That's true. That's true. And maybe I'm thinking more of an NFL as we're growing up. So if we're looking for 5 yards of carry, we've talked about the fact that Baxter is just under that mark so far at 4.8. Ruben is at 3.8, a full yard per carry.
I forgot that. He was under 4.
Yeah, a full yard per carry less. Now he's 9.1. Yeah, he's 9.1 a catch for A&M, but Baxter had twice as many receptions as he did. Baxter had 5 touchdowns. Owens only had 3. He just hadn't really found himself. And unless I'm wrong, I don't think there's been Baxter had the little nagging injury thing that kept him down a little bit. I don't know that there's really been that for Owens, obviously, until this injury. So it's a big one, but I think any Aggie catch that would tell you they absolutely knew they had a star in Ruben Owens in 2024, they're hoping. They're hoping they have a star. There's nothing to prove it yet, but he certainly was a guy they were going to ask to be that guy. This is an all-freshman SEC performer. Catch, he had more all-purpose yards, more rushing yards, and more kickoff return yards than any true freshman in the entire conference. So there was expectation there, and it's a huge loss.
Sucks, man. You hate to see guys. I was all my attention was had. I wanted to watch A&M this season and see what the real Ruben Owens was. Because you can always look at a freshman season and they get a get out of jail card for whatever doesn't happen, right? It's like, look, they're young kids. He's making a massive leap up in competition from where he played his Friday nights to what he's doing on Saturday afternoons. I was really looking forward to seeing and to what he was going to do, just like Baxter. Yeah. And now we're in a position where they'll go. Both of those players will now be going into their junior seasons. And I have no idea what the storyline will look like because college football waits for nobody. So it's impossible to know when these guys come back next year. The big question will be, are they back to being whatever they were before or better or worse? What are they physically? But the dynamics of each running back room and what each role will be for them or expected of them is hard to know. You don't know what door that opens up for somebody else. Do they run through it? Do they have a big season? And, does CJ Baxter come back next year? And I don't know, let's just say Jaden Blue has 1,100 yards running, doesn't go pro, but he's 1,000-yard running back on a team that makes it to the playoffs and has some success. That's Blue's job. And if Blue departs, then that's one thing. But if he comes back, or what does Trey Wisner do? It's impossible to know. Will one of these true freshman running backs, Christian Clark or Jarrett Gibson, pop in a way that going into next season, they feel more established than a player coming off of an injury? Both players are kind of starting back at 0 when they come back. And I don't know. I don't know what happens to their careers moving forward. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a death sentence. They can come back and be better than ever, and it can be a blip on the radar. But, and I looked at this up at 10 Thoughts from the Weekend, Texas is almost at a 70% hit rate when it comes to signing 5-star prospects and then them making it to the NFL. Either drafted, not drafted, practice squad. I counted everything. If you earned a paycheck from an NFL team beyond just going to the initial camp, right? If you made the team, played an NFL game, or just got signed to a practice squad, I counted it. Texas is at a 70% hit rate, which sounds really good, actually. The miss rate, 30%, and of that 30%, when you look back and say, well, what happened to that 30%? more times than not, it's injury. More times than not, it's a knee, it's a shoulder, it's a foot, it's something that causes a guy to never quite hit the stride that everybody thought they would hit. So well wishes to both, continue to CJ Baxter, we've said that, but to Reuben Owens. Nobody wants to see a guy not be able to fulfill his dreams because the body didn't allow him to. So get healthy, guys. Come back next year stronger than ever. But it's kind of impossible to know what the landscape looks for either of those guys who, again, intertwined in ways that are kind of weird. Chad, before we go to Michael Fasusi, do we just do that now? Do we just tease Fasusi on the thumbnail and in the title? I don't want people who are just tuning in for Fasusi to be like, come on, guys, it's been 45 minutes. Where's Michael Fasusi?
Yeah, we definitely don't need to go that far. I tell you what, let's do this. Let me thank almost 400 people in the Specs chat. We will say hello to Lisa and the Specs ad, and then you can tell them about Fasusi. Here we go.
Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
Catch, I've always said Texas fans can be a realistic bunch, sometimes too realistic. I think right now they are realistically bracing themselves for this Michael Fasusi story and where it ends. What's the update today?
Well, look, we're 9 days away. It's August 12th. He's announcing on the 21st. So the Fasusi train is coming down the tracks, the commitment train, that is. He told Jason Sukumel in an interview that was on Orange Bloods over the weekend that the decision's been made. Now, it's an interesting, the Texas and Michael Fasusi, I don't think, are dead, like not by any stretch of the imagination. That is almost a little bit of clickbait, if you will. Like it's not that dire. But Oklahoma fans and media think they lead for Fasusi. I think the national media talks about the recruitment still as if it's a 50-50 type situation. The situation with Texas is really fascinating. And there's a lot of elements to this. Some that I've just been thinking in my head, some that I've talked to and communicated with sources. And sometimes weirdly, and I'll get to one in a little bit, where I was thinking it in my head and I had one of my sources. And by the way, sometimes we just need to reiterate to people, like when you add up all of the sources on Orange Bloods, it's like 100. I don't know. Like it's not like a source that you go to for everything. There's all kinds of sources. So when I say, I bring this up because sometimes everybody thinks I'm automatically talking about the Wolf. And, the Wolf is like the Charles Jefferson of Fast Times at Ridgemont High. You fly that dude in for games, you don't bother the Wolf with everything. Sometimes you go to the other sources. So not every source is the same. Sometimes your sources can be, I wrote about 10 Thoughts from the Weekend. Yesterday was the 8-year anniversary of Anwar reporting that Tyrone Swoops is going to be the starting quarterback, and it's not even close. And people forget that was a quote from a source and not an opinion, that it's like, Anwar said that Swoops was going to start. And I was like, well, no, his source, who is very, 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 very high up the Texas food chain, said that I had mentioned in my column that on the eve of the Notre Dame game that year, I had a conversation with Charlie Strong over the phone about him confirming Anwar's reporting. Sometimes your sources are really high up. But I had a conversation with a source this weekend who almost felt like he was reading my mind. So let's start with the Fasusi thing. I think Oklahoma leads for Fasusi. I think if you ask me today, I think they're going to get a commitment from Michael Fasusi on the 21st. I've got in a Texas Future cast. I haven't yet switched it over to Oklahoma, but if you held a gun to my head today and said, who do you think this kid's going to sign with on the 21st? I think today I would lean towards Oklahoma. I thought my understanding is that Fasusi is in the group of prospects that Texas hasn't made its big final closing pitch to, not in terms of the coaches talking to them, not in terms of NIL, not in terms of any of the stuff that has helped make Texas close like bad mothers over the course of the last few years under Sarkisian. We know how well he closes. We know how well and successful they've been at flipping elite prospects. They've done it every year. I think they flipped a 5-star every year. It's interesting to me that I'm hearing that the NIL money associated with Fasusi might hit $1 million. That
Wow.
he might be a $1 million prospect, and that might be the NIL going rate. The real issue, and this somewhat explains why Texas is going a little slower on the let's make our big NIL pitch with all of the guys in this recruiting class, is some of this stuff's not real. Some of it's a mirage. You know, there was a time when the kid that committed, Dominic Williams, you know, there's a lot of conversation that he was looking for $1 million, that's what he was going to get. And then in the end, it sounds like he got substantially less. He got a lot of money in NIL from Oklahoma, but it doesn't sound like he got anywhere close to $1 million. But sometimes the hype isn't real. And sometimes these schools don't come through on what it is that they're offering. There is discussion that Fasusi could be a 7-figure guy. And by 7 figures, it's not like 7 million, but like $1 million. And I've been told that Texas hasn't made its big NIL push with him. They've not had serious the serious level of NIL conversations that I think will eventually take place. So he falls into the category of players that I don't think Texas feels like they need to be overly concerned about. They are convinced that September, October, and November, it's going to be a madhouse, and that it won't just be Texas, that every school in the country with regards to a prospect that they have in high interest in, all those schools will have an idea of what the NIL market looks like for all of those players. So let's just say you're Baylor. Baylor's had a nice start to their recruiting year, and they've been very open that they're paying players. They literally have coaches wearing T-shirts that say we're paying players.
That's crazy, by the way.
So let's say you're TCU or you're Texas Tech or you're SMU or you're Texas, and there's anybody in the Baylor commitment class that you want, you're going to have an idea in August what that NIL number from Baylor looks like. So let's say Baylor, and these are all hypotheticals. I'm literally not thinking of anybody in particular when I say this, but let's say they've got some kid on their team, their roster and recruiting, that they're going to give $200,000 a year in NIL to, just as a completely made up number for the sake of proving a point.
You're saying somebody coming in this next class?
Yes. Let's say that one of the kids that Baylor has committed is going to get $200,000 a year in NIL. That's what they're under the impression that they're going to be getting. Well, if you're TCU or you're Texas Tech or you're Texas and you're like, I want to come in and flex some muscle, you know what the NIL numbers look like. And if Texas Tech comes in and says, young man, we'll give you $300,000 in NIL instead of $200,000 in NIL, if you don't think that changes the dynamics of his decision-making process, I don't know what to tell you, because I'm telling you right now, if somebody came to Chad and said, Chad, we know you're making what you're making at House Divided, but we're going to pay you $200,000 more a year. Chad, we love each other. But like $200,000 change, like these things change dynamics. And I think there's a real feeling behind the scenes. We're going to see this. We're going to see more decommitments forever because of the dynamics of NIL. And I think Texas is in some ways wise to be holding so steady when a lot of people would be suggesting now is the time to panic. You got to do it now. What happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? They really want to see what the marketplace looks like before, to be fair, investing hundreds of thousands of dollars in NIL and into the millions. So you got to know what's real and what's not real. And that's part of what's going on.
Some good chats coming in on the topic here, Catch. I was just marking a few here. Kind of back to this idea. We've heard it in the last few days and weeks. Deborah saying still think this late approach is a poor strategy. Tracy adding, if they're wrong, what's the chance the staff changes their strategy? Or are they so convinced that if it fails, it's just a 1-year fluke? And then one more quick one. I'll let you respond.
Okay.
It said if the strategy backfires, oh boy, with some head pounding stuff. Because Catch to
Go
this
back
one.
To the second question. This is the one that I think's really at the heart of the issue. Tracy, everybody's strategies are constantly evolving. This is new for everybody. I mean, Baylor's openly promoting that they're paying players, and it would appear that they are. They're, for what they do in recruiting, they've had some success. This wasn't happening a year ago. At every level of college football, what Oregon's done in the last 12 months, they weren't doing 12 months ago. Everybody has been in the NIL space long enough now that adjustments are taking place. I know you guys make fun of me sometimes because I like to use the word fluid, that things are fluid, but things are fluid. Things are changing. Will they change their strategy? That's part of what's happening right now. This is Texas making what they think are the adjustments that need to be made based on the life experiences that they've had in the last couple of years. That's what this is. Now, they've been recruiting at a top 5 level. They're making tweaks that they think can change top 5 to top 2 or top 1, right? This is not them trying to do something kooky for the sake of kookiness. This is them doing what they think strategically is the best way to approach things. So even if they're right, things could change in 12 months. It's constantly changing. So the thing that I've always said about Steve Sarkisian, that, Chad, I think it's the single biggest compliment that I can give Sarkisian. It's because I think that because if somebody said this about me, I would think that's kind of the ultimate compliment. So I'm self-projecting a little bit here. But one of the things that I love about Sarkisian, he's not stubborn. He's not. I have seen him in more instances than I can name where he had a thought or an opinion or approach and he changed it. And he's one of the rare individuals that might steadfast believe in one thing, but once he's shown that he's wrong even a little bit, he will take immediate action. I'll give you an example. Just as an example, it's the first one that comes to my mind. He's really quick on if he makes a bad hire on the staff. If he thinks even a little bit that this isn't working, we can do better, he will do what's needed to make a change. Look at when he made the hire of Andre Coleman. There were people who said that's a bad hire. He's not a great recruiter. You should have done better. And I think Sarkisian felt like, no, this is the guy. I like this hire. And when it didn't work out, Andre Coleman got the door. A new wide receiver coach came in. Sark is ruthless about quickly making adjustments when they're needed. It's my favorite thing about him. Because I know too long I covered the Mac Browns of the world, the Charlie Strongs of the world, even the Tom Herman to a certain degree, where they were slow to make adjustments. They were slow to make adjustments on things that were obvious. And I think in a lot of ways, that's the reason why for the last 10 years plus, except last season, right? From 2010 through 2022, football around here's kind of sucked. I think what what not being able to be that kind of a person is part of the reason that led the program to be in the space that it was. Texas is where it's at because Sarkisian quickly adjusts. So with regards to NIL, if this works, they might adjust anyway. If it doesn't work, they will certainly adjust. Sarkisian is about constantly evolving. Always remember that. Don't look at this through the vacuum as if they're wrong, it doesn't mean, okay, well, Sarkisian's recruiting forever is done. Well, might as well fire the guy, Chad, because 2025 recruiting just didn't quite hit the heights that everybody thought it would. No, he'll make changes. And the one thing you tend to not worry about with Sarkisian is recruiting. Now, I have an interesting philosophical debate and conversation to have with you. Okay. And I'm curious what the people I had this on Orange Bloods with one of my favorite posters, 05 Prey. We don't always agree, but he and I have interesting back and forths because he's into nerdy analytical things like I am. So whenever I write about that stuff, he's almost always lockstep with me. But when we disagree, we disagree. One of the things about the weekend, and this is not me screaming panic at all, but 5-star offensive tackle Brandon Baker from the 2024 recruiting class. So he's been on campus 6 months. Mm-hmm. He's running third string offensive tackle, and sometimes he's run fourth string in camp. He's somewhere in between those things, but mostly in the scrimmage on Saturday, it seemed like he was running third string. Now, again, no reason to panic. It happens, especially when you've got depth, and it feels like Texas does have depth at tackle. So much so, the landscape is so different in 2024 than it was in 2021 when Kelvin Banks showed up, and it was like, you either start at left tackle from day one, consequences be damned, or what are our options? That's not where Texas is. But when you look at Brandon Baker, it's likely he won't have a first-year impact, okay? Next year, it looks like Trevor Goosby is going to be the left tackle. Kelvin Banks will go pro, barring something really terrible happening, quite frankly. Kelvin Banks is expected to go pro. And then Cam Williams will either come back for another season or, in theory, Brandon Baker could be competing for that job, but he's currently behind Andre Kojo. And, you know, if he's third string, then there's a guy on second string that's ahead of him. Anyway, the conversation just came up that while they're incredibly high on Brandon Baker and they think he's an NFL player and the expectation is for him to eventually be a super plus player for Texas before he leaves, it's possible that he might not be an impact player for Texas until his third season. Now, what does that mean? That means he's like Cam Williams. There's almost no player in the program that's getting more hype and more love and more appreciation going into this season than Cam Williams. I mean, Alex is constantly referencing super NFL prospects in conjunction with Cam Williams. But Cam Williams started one game in his career as he goes into year 3. The difference is Cam Williams wasn't a major NIL investment for the program. That the initial outlay for him, he wasn't a super blue chip prospect. So unlike Michael Fasusi, nobody was talking about him being a $1 million a year type player. So the conversation pops up. If you're Texas, I don't know what, I have an idea of what Brandon Baker's NIL situation probably looks like, but I don't know exactly. And it feels a little icky to, quite frankly, talk about people's business that specific. Even with Fasusi, $1 million is just like a very generic number. It's not, that's exactly what the number is. Let's just say Brandon Baker got $500,000 in NIL guarantees coming to Texas. Remember, Baker is a guy that said he was going to the school that would pay him the most NIL money, point blank. He's been one of the only 5-star level prospects in the last couple of years that's been 1,000% transparent about it. Show me the money. I don't really care about nothing else. So it stands to reason that in order for Texas to get a 5-star offensive lineman from the state of California, that it took some NIL heavy lifting to get there. Let's just say $500,000. $500,000 per season. So that's potentially $1 million in NIL money over the course of 2 years, where Texas isn't getting immediate returns on that money. I think when we talk about how does Texas adjust in the future, I think this is a conversation that they will be having. Now, some of this I've thought about, but this is one of the topics that a source reached out to me about, was like, you know what? Would we, because let's say it's year 3. So the investment for Brandon Baker's 3rd year at Texas in total, $1.5 million. That's a lot of money. That's a lot. It's a lot of money to not give a guy who's not playing right away. And I think when we talk about teams have budgets, and that Oregon and Ohio State and the Texases of the world are somewhere probably between 17 and 20-ish million dollars in NIL spending, imagine that like 5% of it is taken up by a player who's not playing right away. I think one of the things that will transpire with every school, the Baylors and the TCUs of the world will have to do this as well. If they've got a budget of $5 million and they're going to give a guy a chunk of that, that guy almost has to come in and play right away. It's really hard to justify having a lot of NIL money on the bench, especially for multiple seasons. Now, most 5-star level prospects don't they don't have to wait 2 years, 3 years to get on the field. Most of them get on the field all the time. It's one of the things that we've talked about with Arch. He's going to wait till year 3, except he hasn't been taking any NIL money, and it's a unique set of circumstances that has him waiting until a 3rd year. But when you go through the super blue chips across the board that Texas have signed over the last couple of seasons, they've either already, they usually make big first-year impacts, or by year 2, here they come.
Let me jump in 1 second, because somebody threw in a chat that I thought was good. As you were talking, laying out the idea, Chad sent this chat. Thank the Lord for that. Sark and Flood have worked wonders with our O-line depth in 3 years. What if my response to you is, this is how Texas needs to be? This is how they need to be acting. If you're going to be Texas, you're going to pay NIL money, and you're going to have, in a perfect world, offensive linemen that in year 2, or maybe even year 3, you'd love it to be year 2, you're going to have already invested in them. And that's what Georgia would tell you they have to do. And that's what Ohio State will tell you if you ask them in a couple of years.
Not every 5-star. The thing is, though, not every 5-star hits. There's no guarantee on Brandon Baker. Look, Reuben Owens was an expensive NIL addition for Texas A&M. Look, that kid committed to Louisville early in the process. And you're naive and gullible if you think that Reuben Owens initially committed to Louisville for football reasons. It's just, and look, we got to get to the point where there's no shame in talking about this. This is all on the up and up. If Louisville wanted to give Reuben Owens $700,000 to come to Louisville, Reuben Owens is within his right to take it. It's the new world that we live in.
Because if Brandon Baker is going to be the one that said it, Catch, we know he's not the only one thinking it.
Well, look, so Reuben Owens, let's use the same $500,000 number just for the sake of consistency with Reuben Owens, right? Well, look, going into next season, Texas A&M is going to have invested more than $1 million NIL dollars in Reuben Owens. And they don't know whether or not yet that staff doesn't know, A, can he come back and be fully healthy? And B, does his fully healthy mean he averages more than 4 yards a carry? It's in situations like that, there are more questions than answers. But what makes the situation with Baker a little unique, and look, there's a final point to this that I'm eventually going to get to, and it involves Michael Fasusi. I can tell you that the idea of spending that much money, the thing is, Texas is not rolling. They're not doing snow angels in money right now on the NIL side. They're successfully doing well in NIL, but what was the character's name in Breaking Bad? The big guy who did the snow angel on the pile of cash? Is it Hurd? Huell, right?
Huell, yes.
When Huell is doing snow angels in money, that is not what's happening at Texas right now. I actually heard from an NIL person last week who said, we need to start doing better or else. Okay. I didn't even report that. I just filed that away. No reason to yell fire in a crowded theater. And it was just a thought. It wasn't necessarily, it was just something I heard. When you're spending $20 million and you're in the high hundreds of thousands or even in $1 million over the course of multiple seasons, and it's going to a player who's not immediately playing, you're going to ask yourself, are we spending the money wisely? Now, Chad, there is a conversation to be had about, well, yeah, if you're Georgia and you're Texas and you're Alabama, you want to have 5-star offensive linemen on your roster who are able to develop and not be rushed. And hey, it's a good thing that in year 3 they're ready to hit the field and that they haven't been rushed and all that. That's conventional football thinking.
Right. And for the record, you have been paying them for years, one way or the other.
But what you can't do in this era is miss a lot. That's the pressure that schools deal with. And Texas has been incredibly lucky because Sarkisian's biggest NIL additions, Kelvin Banks, plays right away, right? We can go down the list. CJ Baxter starts as a true freshman. Jonte Cook is at worst looks like he's going to be a starter in year 2. You start just going through the 5 stars. That's the football way of thinking. Hey, it's kind of a good thing that these guys are rushed. It's not a bad thing to sit back and let guys develop. But in this new NIL world where, look, we don't have $50 million sitting in the bank to spend 20. We're spending 20 and we are looking under the couch cushions to find the money to get to 20. Having a large number of that piece of the pie not active, it leaves a mark. It is the kind of thing that you'll second guess yourself about, not on the football coaching side of things. Again, Kyle Flood's looking at Brandon Baker and he's like, Brandon Baker is right on time. Brandon Baker is eventually going to be an NFL player. Brandon Baker just needs to develop. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that on the football side of things. But from an NIL payment side of things, maybe that's not the guy that you need to invest your money in. So to spend $1 million and not have in the first 2 years and have zero return on your investment will cause a person to ask, did we invest the money correctly and wisely?
So catch 2 here real quick. South End Zone Queen threw in NIL for portal should be immediate production. I think we could all agree with that. You want that to be a very immediate thing. But to this one, to ATX, Bates. When you're spending Fasusi level money, it's not whether he's the best O lineman in his class. It's will he be day one
Bingo.
starter like a Banks? Would you agree with that? It's got to be that immediate if you're spending X amount of dollars. It's not a 2-year development. It's a game one. He's immediately out there.
If you're going to, at this point, $1 million, he would be, if Texas landed Michael Fasusi and that was the rate that he was going at, it'd be the highest spend that Texas would ever make on a player on NIL. And I have a feeling that's going to be true whether or not Oklahoma signs the kid. Oklahoma's never signed a prospect on the offensive line at that level. You have to go back to Stephen Good, 2007, I think. So OU hasn't signed an offensive lineman of this level. Bill Bedenbaugh's never signed a 5-star offensive line prospect. If they get Fasusi and it's at that kind of rate, well, let's just talk about the Texas side of things, okay? Michael Fasusi, and look, I don't say this, Texas fans, don't you get upset at me when I say this and say, you can't say that out loud. What if the Sooners show Michael Fasusi the video of House Divided on August 12th when you said this? And I'm going to say, you don't think this point's already been made in recruiting? It's unlikely that Michael Fasusi starts as a true freshman at Texas. He is a left tackle by nature. Trevor Gooseby will be going into his 3rd season next year. And there's already a feeling that Gooseby might be a top 5 offensive lineman in the program, but he's very definitely a tackle. He's not one of these big guys that's like, oh, we'll put him at guard. No, he's a tackle, and he's a left tackle. And it's possible he's got 2 seasons of starting before he goes off to the NFL and a door gets opened up. Meanwhile, on the right side of the offensive line, you do have Brandon Baker. You do have depth at tackle from the last couple of recruiting classes. I'm not saying that it would take 3 years for Michael Fasusi to get on the field at Texas. What I'm saying is it might take more than 1 year before he would get on the field at left tackle. And there's a lot of current young depth at tackle, including Brandon Baker, who was a 5-star last year, that will be in front of him on the day that he would arrive. Can you spend $1 million a year on a player? Can the most expensive NIL player prospect on your team be a guy that needs and requires 2 or 3 years to get on the field? Because before, let's say it takes till year 2, you're up to multi-million-dollar investments at that point, and you still don't know if he's good. You don't know. And would you be better off, like we talk about Walter Nolan, right? Would you be better off paying Walter $1 million, his 1 point whatever, or giving it to a freshman that is completely unproven? One of the dynamics of college football that is still evolving, but I think one of the things, there's a Michael Fasusi conversation that I've had this weekend where it goes like this. John Turntine's an offensive tackle who's expected to be a 5-star in the 2026 class. If the going rate for 5-star offensive linemen moving forward is $1 million, are you better off signing a 2025 guy that needs multiple years of development and potential waiting time because of what's on campus, right? Because of circumstances that are beyond the control of the prospects that you're signing? Or, and this can't always happen, but would you be better off just waiting a year and signing the 2026 guy for $1 million? Because potentially there's less dead time and dead sunken cost that you have to spend, where you're spending, let's say, 1/20th of your NIL space on a guy that doesn't play in that season. I don't know what the answers are. And I don't know if everybody watching this is intrigued by all of this. But these are conversations that are taking place behind the scenes, and they're conversations that have never taken place behind the scenes before at a major university. Basically, it's a little bit like, is it excuse making? A little bit, like, because I would tell you there's almost no way the 2025 class for Texas can be successful unless they get Michael Fasusi. But I think there are people behind the scenes that would say, all things being equal, maybe Turntine is the guy we need to get because he's 1 year later on, and we need to let some of this tackle depth kind of move on. Again, I'm not telling you what I think the answers are. I need more time to think about all of this. But the idea that it might be bad, or there might be something bad about having 5-star level offensive line depth, is a little mind exploding, Chad. It goes against everything any of us could have ever dreamed of.
Right. That's why I threw this one up. It was just an interesting comment. Catcher making an excuse why he ends up a
No, I'm
Sooner.
not. I'm not. Zandrea, I'm not. Because Oklahoma may sign him and they may just beat Texas out. Or Texas may come in October and November and make an NIL offer that's more than what Oklahoma offers. And the dynamics may change. Like, I'm not making excuses. I'm talking about what happens next. Either way. I'm talking, and specifically, this Brandon Baker thing is new. Because look, what I'm getting at, Chad, is I wonder if 12 months ago, if you had told the Texas coaches and those involved with NIL fundraising that it was going to cost more than $1 million or whatever the cost ends up being for Brandon Baker to get him, but he's not going to play immediately, and it might be 2 or 3 years before he does, I wonder what their response would have been in real time to what they should do, how they should approach that. I don't think they know behind the scenes. I think this is all really fresh. But what I can tell you is the NIL money, like the fundraising of it, is not taken for granted. Texas does not have so much money that it can afford to play around with it, to put millions investing into pieces of the team that are years away from making an impact. Because in the portal era, why do that? Why not just, when you need the help, pay for it? When you actually need the Brandon Bakers of the world, you pay for it and get him through the portal. How many teams across the country are able, and in a lot of ways, this is really an offensive line conversation, Chad. Although I would point to the Aggies' defensive line recruiting for the last 5 years, and I might point towards that a little bit, although they get to rotate a little bit more. Almost every position where a 5-star prospect comes across, the ability and the process for them getting on the field is easier than it is for offensive linemen. Example, Brandon Baker. Even if he was tearing it up, even if he'd come in and looked like the best thing since sliced bread, he's not starting this year. Kelvin Banks and Cam Williams are the starters. And quite frankly, Trevor Gooseby is the third tackle. And that was going to be the case no matter what. So I think, philosophically speaking, with regards to highly rated offensive linemen, I think there will be a conversation moving forward by teams that spend money. If you have a couple of 5-star offensive line prospects in your system, I think it will be debated how many more you can afford to have. And it won't be a football decision, because if you can have nothing but 5-star offensive line prospects in the system, oh my God, that sounds wonderful. That sounds like what Alabama could do back in the day. But it's going to be, from a cost standpoint, times are changing. And I think there are at least some Michael Fasusi questions being asked on a cost standpoint coming out of the circumstances that Brandon Baker's situation is creating. They're spending, there's just no way to get around from this. They are spending a lot of money on Brandon Baker, Texas NIL. to have him on the roster and he's not playing, could you have taken that money and invested it somewhere else where there's an immediate payoff and that helps the team immediately? Because I get the sense with NIL money at the top for the true big dogs in college football, it's about winning a national championship in the year that you're in and less about 2 years down the road. And if Brandon Baker is a 2 years down the road player, or even just a 12 months down the road type player, if Texas had, I don't know, let's say they said, you know what, we're going to take Brandon Baker's money and we're just going to give it to a defensive tackle, Walter Nolan, or maybe any of the defensive tackles they missed on, right? Maybe they'd say, you know what? We saved this money specific for this position. Dominic Williams, here's your $1 million. So maybe you're able to overspend at one position because you save money elsewhere. I'm just rattling on now. What I'm telling you is the Fasusi recruitment has a million tentacles to it, but the NIL part cannot be ignored. It's going to cost a lot of money. And I don't think either Oklahoma and Texas fully know what that dollar amount is. Why? Because Texas hasn't made a move yet. So Oklahoma, up until now, I think on the NIL side, has truly been bidding against themselves. Texas has not come forward and strongly on the NIL front said, this is what we think can be done for you. And there's a sense that on the marketplace, regardless of which schools have driven this up, maybe it's A&M, maybe it's Oregon, maybe it's Alabama, there's the idea that it's going to cost $1 million. And I think both Oklahoma and Texas are probably wondering, is that real? Is that really what it's going to cost? Because that's what Dominic Williams had people thinking it was going to cost, and then it ended up not costing that much. So there's still a lot to go down and a lot to happen for a player who says he's making a final decision in 9 days.
Michael, thank you for the $4.99 super chat along this discussion. Does this mean UT is a victim of its own success? They've recruited / developed so well that now they can't do what it takes to keep getting 5-star O-linemen.
Now, I haven't completely said that, Chad.
Yeah, that's a weird way to think about it.
It's not that they can't keep doing what it takes to keep getting 5-star offensive linemen. They might. What I'm telling you is they're just asking the question. Mm-hmm. Do we have enough NIL resources available that taking a 5-star level prospect that doesn't play immediately, and this goes to the portal as well. Like, would you give Trey Moore a bunch of money if you thought he wasn't going to make an instant impact in year one? Oh, we got this guy out of the portal and he's a 2026 guy. It sounds lovely to be able to do that. There's not a team in the country, not even Ohio State and Oregon or Georgia, that are currently working and operating like that. But we're used to college football programs. When you took the NIL out of the equation, Chad, stack your roster. Try to get as many guys as possible who are rated as highly as possible, all in these positions. What's different in 2024 that's different from 2014 is that those guys are all making a lot of money, like a lot more money than they previously were. So,
and coming up, what's going to be different, Catch, is that instead of 85 of those scholarships, that number's about to go up. The possibility of that number goes up, and now you got to figure out how to divvy out money to O-linemen and everybody else.
That's 25 more mouths to feed.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you've got, that's roughly 1/3, not quite 1/3, it's like 30% more of what they currently are doing. They don't get to automatically work with 30% more money. It's not like, okay, to adjust for that, here's an extra $7 million to work with to help. No, it's college football teams are. This is why, Chad, I'm always talking about from a general manager standpoint, I think Texas should have somebody who has been a front office / assistant general manager / general manager with NFL experience at that level in that position, because running a roster moving forward is literally like working under a self-imposed salary cap. You only have the dollars that you have. And where you get yourself into trouble as a college football program in 2024 is committing more dollars than you have. I think Texas A&M got into that. They put together one of the best recruiting classes in the history of recruiting. It was 8 5-stars, right, Chad?
I believe that's correct. 7 or 8. Yeah.
Imagine how much 8 5-stars costs.
That's a lot of Aggie bucks.
It's a lot of Aggie bucks, and that's not even the rest of the guys in the recruiting class. And what has happened, we've seen, I think some of those guys probably got everything that was promised to them. And I think there's a little bit of a reputation out there that not every guy did.
Yeah.
And look, promises, I'm just telling you, I talk to NIL people, and they'll tell you the promises that are being made to these kids are wild. I'll use that Braylon Addison example from a couple of years ago. He went to USC thinking, well, they're telling me I'm going to make somewhere between $1 million and $2 million a year. He came to visit Texas. And Texas put together, from what I know, an NIL situation that was not $1 million a year. It just wasn't. They're not paying $1 million now, a couple of years later. But Addison's agents believed that he should have gone to Texas and taken the Texas NIL money. Why? Their offer might have been lower, but by God, they were going to pay it. Braylon Addison went to USC thinking that he was going there for one amount of money. And from what I know, not only did he not get the money that he thought he was going to get in going to USC, he ended up getting less money than what Texas had offered on the NIL front. In the end, his eyes were bigger than his stomach. And what they thought they were going to get, what he thought he was going to get, and what he got were two different things. There was always a sense that Addison felt that USC lied to him. And that whole year that he was at USC, there was some hurt feelings about what did or didn't happen in the way of NIL promises and commitments. These things happen all over the country. What Texas does not want to do is get into a position where they overcommit. And I would say, and I just thought about this now, this isn't something that someone has told me, this isn't sourced, but one of the reasons why you're probably seeing Texas go slower in NIL space, why they're not, other than Decory and Moore, they changed the rules that they're operating under, from what I understand, to try to get Decory and Moore, and it didn't even work. But they did try, and they did go beyond NIL for him than they've gone for anybody ever. But it's possible if in August or July you're throwing out NIL offers willy-nilly, like I think there's an expectation that some schools have, because the bill won't come due for a lot of these schools. If all you're doing is driving up the price for others. Louisville's a perfect example. Whatever A&M had to pay Reuben Owens in NIL to get Reuben Owens was somewhat created by whatever the hell Louisville did in NIL, which set the marketplace. I think part of what Texas has to do right now is figure out how much how much are we really going to offer? I don't think they know, because maybe it's like, you know what? We do have enough money to get Michael Fasusi. Let's hit them with the $1 million offer and see what happens. Or it may be, look, we think we're going to get French. We think we're going to get Michael Terry. We just got Khalil Lockett. We've got KJ Lacey. Oh, out of nowhere, suddenly it looks like we're going to get Jonah Williams. And, you know, if we spend too much, if we recruit too well, we may not have enough money for the portal, right? Okay, there's got to be some give and take. That's the thing. And if Texas does really, really well in recruiting and they spend a bunch of money right now, that definitely shortens what's available, I think, in the portal. You can't, they don't have enough to win all of their recruits, spend all of the money that everybody thinks they should spend. Well, if it costs 1.5 to get Decoria Moore, spend the 1.5. And then if it takes another $1 million to get him, then by God, spend $1 million. Jamie French, yeah, give him his $1 million. Look, all the fans in college football are easy at being open-minded to the idea of let's just give all these guys the money. But it's not all there. And I think one of the things that the Fasusi situation is creating is behind the scenes some dialogue. If you're Texas, and I know OU fans said that I was making excuses for Texas. I'm not. But think about it like this. If you're Texas and you haven't made the big push for Michael Fasusi from an NIL standpoint, in part because you don't really know what the real market for him looks like. Let's say when it's time to have those conversations, let's say you're working under a budget and it's like, well, quite frankly, it's either Fasusi or Jonah Williams. We cannot afford both. Both of those guys are 5-star prospects. Both are going to cost a bunch of money. If we take both, boy, we're going to have to do some real fundraising because it is, that money just doesn't exist. I think you have to make, and then it comes back to what I'm talking about with Brandon Baker. If the conversation is Jonah Williams or Michael Fasusi, and these are all hypotheticals. I swear I'm not telling you that this is an actual conversation that has happened. I'm saying it's a conversation that could and probably would happen at some point. Then it may come down to, okay, we love both players. We can only get one based on the costs. Which guy plays first? Is Jonah Williams going to play right away? Is Michael Fasusi going to play right away? If the answer to that is yes for one and no for the other, I think we may start seeing decisions made based on that reality instead of who do we think is the best player long term? Because these costs on these streets are real. And, as a business owner, I get it. As a business owner, I would love to pay everybody on my staff twice what they're making. That's not realistic. Orange Bloods doesn't have the financial wherewithal to just pay everybody double. And if we did, we'd already done it, but that doesn't exist. I would love to just give everybody raises, including myself. But we have a budget. We have to work in the budget. We try to work within the budget. If something happens where it's like Chad comes to me and says, I need $1 million more a year, or I got to leave Orange Bloods live, probably can't fit that into my budget. And so for the first time ever, what we've always called college football teams big business, Chad. It's a $1 billion industry. It's a multi-million-dollar business. But the teams themselves now are businesses. They come with costs. And return on investment is a real thing. And there will be conversations in the future about how immediate is our ROI. And I think it's a new element of college football and college football recruiting that nobody's having this conversation but us right now. But I'm telling you, this isn't a short-sighted conversation. This isn't wasted breath. I know you're not hearing this from other people on other platforms, but this is the new reality that every school in whatever form of reality they live in, whether or not their budget is 5, 10, 15, 20, $25 million, these are conversations that are taking place, and it's never been talked about openly in the past, and we're having a little bit of transparency here on a Monday.
All right, speaking of breath, let's let catch his breath. A little over 1,000 people in the Specs chat right now. We appreciate you. Let's hear from audio-visual consultations, and then we've got buy or sell coming up. We've got to get into some scrimmage talk as well. Here's what AV consultations can do for you.
Hi, this is Tom McKay with Audiovisual Consultations. Today's home electronics can be a bit daunting. My company has spent the last 36 years making sure they are not. For those of you who have not experienced our services yet, we'd like to invite you to give us a try for all your home electronics needs. We carry all the major brands of televisions and stereo equipment at prices you can't find in stores. And we come to you. There's no need to leave your home to find great pricing and incomparable service. No traffic, inexperienced sales geeks, or pushy showroom tactics. We believe in having some fun and dreaming big. You have a dream for your home entertainment? Let us know. We can make it come true. And we are always there to help after the job is done. We cultivate clients for a lifetime by treating everyone like their family. No, not those family members. I'm talking about the ones you actually like. So relax, hug your kids, make love to your wife, and smile. Then, when you have a moment, give us a call at 255-8678. That's 512-255-8678. Or online at avconsultations.com.
All right, Catch, I am not seeing super chats right now. I've had a lot of great chats coming in of various types. So you want to buy or sell here, or did you have something else you wanted to hit?
Well, let's do buy or sell, and then we'll get into some scrimmage thoughts.
Okay. By the way, real quick, one of our own jumped in. Reminder: trying to get to 20,000 subscribers. Like, subscribe, get your notifications, and hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies, tell everybody you know about it. We're trying to get there by the end.
Chad will come over and wash your feet in person if you subscribe to the page this week.
That is true. That is absolutely true. I do have some spare time. I can do that.
He's got washcloths and everything.
I got all kinds of stuff. Big towels, little towels, the medium size. I'm a medium size because I feel like I can move quicker, a little lighter on my feet. Yeah, do that. All right. You want to go first or second, Catch?
I'm going to let you go first today.
Here we go. Let's hit the scrimmage. Buy or sell number one. The combo of Blue and Wisner has you mildly concerned.
Sell.
Okay.
I think that, and I said this on the Overreaction Monday show. Check that out later if you didn't get a chance to see it. I think Jaden Blue is the best skill position player on the Texas roster right now in terms of what I'm expecting from a productivity. And I don't include Quinn Ewers in that conversation. Quarterbacks are different than the wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends. I think he's going to have a monster season. And I don't know that Texas is better off. They're not that CJ Baxter got hurt. Like the combination of Baxter and Blue, quite frankly, look kind of perfect on paper because it's a little bit of thunder, a little bit of lightning. And you get more lightning and lightning with Blue and Wisner, that they're not really thunder.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, like Chris Warren getting banged up in the 2026 preseason, allowed for Deontay Foreman to spread his wings a little bit and turn into a Doak Walker Award winner, which probably never happens if Chris Warren doesn't get hurt back then. We might see that. I think we're going to see, as long as Jaden Blue stays healthy, I think we're going to see a guy that has 1,300 yards rushing, more than 1,500 yards of all-purpose. I think he's going to be an all-SEC player, and I don't know that fully would have happened if he was splitting the carries and the work with C.J. Baxter. So I think we're going to get the best out of Blue. I think Wisner will be an adequate, at worst, fill-in for Baxter on a down-by-down basis. There are some intangibles of what happens when they're in the red zone, what happens on short yardage that they still need to figure out. But I think in terms of overall production, no, I'm not even mildly concerned.
All right, Catch, buy or sell number two. You think we will see Sadir Mitchell and Alex January in the mix at D tackle from game one?
Buy, and we'll get into that specifically after buy or sell.
Fair enough. Buy or sell number three. You watched the Cowboys preseason opener. You wish you hadn't.
Sell. I had the game on all four quarters. I was watching some stuff on YouTube, and so I was multitasking and writing at the same time. It was perfectly fine background material. You know, I don't know that I can't tell you. I know that Trey Lance played a lot, but I didn't have the audio up for all of the game, so I didn't hear and listen to the whole thing. But no, I don't regret it. Then it wasn't the only thing I was doing. Then I would have regretted it. If it was, hey, did you stay for the fourth quarter when the Rams came back on the last drive? No, I saw it, but it was no big deal because I was doing 5 other things at once. If the only thing I had done yesterday in those hours was watch the Cowboys and the Rams, I have a feeling afterwards I will have wished I didn't.
Fair enough. All right, Catch, we'll finish with a couple of birthdays. Buy or sell number 4, Hulk Hogan had a birthday yesterday in a prime-on-prime match where Hogan drops the belt. You want the opponent to be Dusty.
Buy. Yeah, no, that sounds... No, sell.
Who do you want?
I'm completely honest.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
It would have meant more to me at the apex of my wrestling fandom.
Here it comes.
Prime on prime.
Here it comes.
If a fully 2-footed Kerry Von Erich had won the belt off of Hogan.
God, I knew you were headed to Kerry Von Erich when you started that. I knew it. Well done. Well done.
I can't help it, man. I was like 10 years old, 8, 9, 10 years old when the Von Erichs were at their height, and they were Texas gods to me. And
hey, the feelings. And
Dusty was like a couple of years later. I know Dusty was a big time deal at that point, but I was way more into what was happening at the Sportatorium from week to week than I was in the other territories.
Fantastic. All right, let's finish up with Texas baseball, Catch, because it's Coach Schlossnagel's birthday today. Year 1 expectations. Got to make the tournament. Don't have to make Omaha.
Got to make Omaha. And I know that that's a super high bar, but those, it's that whole saying, right? Like the University of Texas. I can't remember exactly what I want to say, but the expectations are the expectations. What starts here changes the world, kind of a thing. You aren't going to like yell at the guy if he doesn't meet the bar. You don't freak out because it's a hard bar to reach in year 1, but the bar is the bar. Every year, the minimum bar for the Texas baseball is make it to Omaha. And a lot of times that's not even a success. Texas baseball, rightfully or wrongly, judges itself based on winning the whole thing in Omaha. Yeah. And it doesn't happen all the time. It's been a long time since it happened, but the standard doesn't drop. And so he has to make it to Omaha. Otherwise, we'll look back in 10 years from now, because this is what Texas baseball fans do. When the moment's over, when they're no longer living in the moment, they look back on a season and go, did we make it to Omaha or did we not? They don't care about context. They don't care about injuries. They don't care about had a bad weekend and Long Beach State came in and took our cornbread, or UC Irvine or whoever you want to bring. All they care is what's the bottom line. In 2034, they'll look back on 2024 and they'll say, did Texas get to Omaha or not? Yes, great season. Or good season, attaboy, guys, you hit the bare minimum. If they don't, it'll be viewed historically as a failure.
That's my 5, Catch. What do you got?
Buy or sell number 1. Jordan Whittington looks like he's going to be a better pro than you thought he would be.
I'll buy that after one preseason game. Keep in mind he's facing the Dallas Cowboys. You always look better in that circumstance. But yeah, I'll buy. And I thought he could be. I thought there was a chance that he could be an impactful pro and make a roster and do some things. But yeah, he looked good. I like the way the Rams will use him. It's also good, Catch, that he's in an offense that never stops thinking. Say what you want about the Rams. That offense never feels boring, and it never feels like they don't have ideas. So Whittington will fit in their world.
I will say that he's doing more now than I thought he would early on. I thought he could make a team. I didn't think after 1 week of the NFL preseason that he would have made a team. And Sean McVay is saying publicly, he's going to play for us this year. He's going to be important for us this year. He's already made the team, and he's competing for a starting job. It's just,
yeah, absolutely. Oh, definite volleyball clap.
Buy or sell number 2. You were excited in the little bit of what we saw from DeMarvion Overshown yesterday. Or not enough.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit excited. Sell, because when I watch the Cowboys now, I'm just thinking no injuries. Like I've lowered the bar so far. Like they play so few of the important guys. The few important guys they actually play, I watch them catch like a nervous mother watching their 4-year-old have their first swim lesson. That's what I feel like when I watch the Cowboys now. So when I watch DeMarvion, I can't fully enjoy it because I'm thinking, oh God, how deep is that water? Is that water 6 feet deep? He's 4 years old. That's all I can think of.
I'm going to steal that. That's great. I will use that in the future. I'll try not to use it on House Divided because it will be so openly obvious that I stole that metaphor from you, but I'm going to steal that metaphor. Buy or sell number 3, Spring Hopes Eternal, right? And we're not in the spring, but we're in preseason. Which
Spring Hopes Eternal or Hope Springs Eternal? Which
whatever.
Okay.
I don't even know what I said just then.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm delirious. I haven't had good sleep in 5 days. I literally don't remember what I said 15 seconds ago. But what I was going to say is like preseason is supposed to be optimism, right? Yeah. Texas football fans go into the preseason and it's like, we're going to win every game. That's what should happen, right? You get optimistic.
Sure.
Good things, positivity.
Yeah.
You watched that Cowboys preseason game though yesterday, and you didn't feel any positivity, and you aren't any more optimistic about whatever's going to happen this season than you were 2 days ago.
Oh, bye. Especially when I watch other teams in the NFL that do this silly thing catch, which is what is it called? Oh yeah, they actually play their starters in preseason a little bit, give you a little taste. Feels like they have a plan. Cowboys don't have a plan. They just don't. They don't.
Buy or sell number 4. Steph Curry's closing 3-point shot against France in the gold medal game will forever be remembered as the best 3-point shot he ever made in like a big moment.
Oh man.
Is there one bigger than that?
Yeah, he's had plenty of them because of the circumstance. Like some of his others feel like they were, nails in coffins and daggers, but were they daggers in that close of a game? I'd have to go back
7.
Right? Like I'd have to go back and double check because I feel like they ended up winning those series, not easily, but they win, that was what led them to the ending, but it wasn't right at the ending. So I'm going to buy it. And that was one of the stupidest, silliest angles I've ever seen him create. And he made a bench full of badasses.
Hall of Famers.
Lose their mind. Just Naismith guys and champions and MVPs. He made them all into children like that. So I'll buy it. That was awesome.
It wasn't that he made a 3 or that he made a 3 in a critical situation. It's that he made a 3 in a critical situation and it was stupid.
Yeah. It felt like 12 guys were guarding him. There were only 2, but it felt like.
Let me tell you, that's what it was like, kids, back in the day. There used to be a game called NBA Jams that you play at a thing called an arcade. And if you made 3 shots in a row, the game would declare that you were on fire. And what that meant is you could shoot from anywhere while you were on fire and the ball would go in the net. That's what it looked like for Steph Curry. He threw that ball up in the air and there was that ball should not have gone in. If you just sit and think about, what if I, from about 25, 30 feet away, lean backwards and heave a ball up in the air? What are the odds that it goes through the hoop? Like, it should be very, 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 very low. Of course he made it. He's Steph Curry.
Yeah.
I'm still mystified by how he did what he did in the final minutes of that game. By the way, if you can't stop and appreciate the fact that we got to watch end of the prime Steph, LeBron, and KD play together, you aren't a basketball fan. That was fun. Fun. We'll never get that again. Those guys are not all 3 going to play in the Olympics again. They hadn't done it previously. It was a unique window in time that allowed for that to happen. And it was really cool to see those players pushed and then how they responded when they were pushed. None of them failed. They all rose to the challenge. It's kind of why they're all top 15 players in the history of the sport. Buy or sell number 5. You saw how much money I made over the weekend at a poker tournament at the Texas Card House. And you weren't surprised because you've seen me play online poker as far back as 16 years ago, and you knew I had it in me.
Oh, well, bye. Of course. You've been training. I was there for I feel like I was there during your Rocky in the gray sweats days, your Rocky hitting the side of beef days, your Rocky training in Russia, screaming, Drago! Those days. So, yes, I've been there for the beginning of the process. I didn't doubt it at all. In fact, when I saw the amount, I thought, I think I was expecting him to win more.
I've been in semi-retirement for a number of years because I've been raising kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been hard to be like, I'm going to break away and leave the kids with my wife and let her do everything. I'm just going to go play some cards. But they're 10. And I've come out of semi-retirement. And I'm proud to say in the second like money tournament out of my semi-retirement, I was at the final table and made a nice. Not only did I make it to the final table, I was there. I didn't win because we chopped the pot when it was all said and done.
Mm-hmm.
So I finished 5th, but 1 through 5 almost had very I wanted to finish it out, but I also liked the idea of getting the money that was suggested. So I used my brain instead of my whatever else was making decisions of pride. Like I want to win, damn it. It was like, wait a minute. I'm going to go from X amount of money to Z amount of money, and I don't have to do anything other than agree. Okay. So, I don't want to say how much money it was because, I don't want Uncle Sam getting in my business from a card playing's perspective. But, it was nice. Now, I got to pay taxes on that, but it was nice. It was nice to have.
There you go. We did get a super chat in while we were doing buy or sell. We will definitely get to that. Thanks to over 1,100 folks in the Specs chat. Also some scrimmage thoughts coming from Catch as the Show Me scrimmage happened on Saturday. He'll give you his thoughts on what we ended up seeing. Real quick, though, let me thank one of our great partners. Catch was just talking about not sleeping super well. Sinus and Snoring Specialist is a place that can make you sleep a little better. Make sure you're resting good. Make sure you're feeling good. Do you have allergy issues? They can get rid of your allergies for good. Do you have sinus headaches and sinus infections? They can get rid of those. Do you have snoring and sleep apnea, or somebody in your bed is snoring like crazy and you can't get to bed? All those things can be dealt with at Sinus and Snoring Specialists. They've been doing this. Dr. Slaughter's got over 20 years of experience, the cutting edge of ear, nose, and throat. In some cases, the procedure that is being performed, he helped develop it, and he helped develop the instruments that are in the procedure. That's how out in front we are talking about here. I went in 2017. I've never regretted it a day since. My wife loves the results she's seeing from Sinus and Snoring Specialists. Every person that I know personally that has gone in there has been happy with the experience, and I think you will too. Check them out. Sinus and Snoring Specialists, 601-0303 is the number in Austin. They're right there at Parmer and Mopac. You can also go to sinussnoringent.com and find out more. Sinus and Snoring Specialists. Feel clear, rested, and healthy. Always important. All right. Let's see here. We got a $10 super chat from the entire region of South Texas. What up, South Texas? Thank you for $10. You'd think the whole region could give us more, but yeah, y'all can figure that out. What is the realistic player personnel budget teams like Texas are working with per year? What percentage does it need to grow to per year? Interesting question. Who really pays the bill? Those last 5 words, Catch, might be the heaviest that have ever been put in a chat. Who really pays the bill?
Well, all of this could be different tomorrow for every school in the country. It's all evolving. Let's just work our way through each question. What is a realistic player personnel budget teams like Texas are working with per year at the highest end of the NIL food chain, which Texas is in? So if you're saying teams like Texas, right now it's between 15 and 20 million and growing every year. It's been more this year than last year, more last year than the year before that. It keeps going. So, and I don't know that that's the budget. I know that's what they've spent. Maybe that's an important distinction to make, Chad, that maybe there's an idea of what the budget is, but maybe sometimes they come under it, which I doubt, but more times than not, I think the cost of doing business is more than probably what they would budget for. But as things currently stand, if we assume that the money they're spending is in the area of their budget, then we're talking like 15, 20 million and growing. I've made the prediction that I think in the next 5 years, there will be a college football team that is spending more in NIL money than the Minnesota Twins, the Oakland A's, because I think they have the lowest payroll in Major League Baseball. I think their payroll is around $60 million. Wow. And I've made the prediction that in 5 years, there will be a school somewhere in America, and maybe more than one, that has a NIL payroll, if you will, above the lowest team in Major League Baseball. Who really pays? What percentage does it need to grow every year? I don't know how to answer that question. Need to grow every year is quite a subjective question for me to answer. I don't know. That's a good one. I wish I'd needs to grow. It can't grow enough. There's no percentage you can put on it right now that would be a cap on what incoming money needs to grow. Who really pays the bill? Right now, it's been a very limited number of people. That there are a bunch of people that give the Texas One Fund. But in general, the wealthiest and one of the things that Texas has done is partner up with corporate partners that are able to help in NIL that alleviate some of the pressure of having to fundraise that from your fan base. But Texas needs more from its fan base. They are not getting nearly enough from the fan base. And I think the fan base is like, everything looks cool to me. We are preseason number 4 in the country. And whatever we're currently doing in the world of NIL is working. So you don't need my money. That's not true. The bill is coming due. Too much stress is being put on too few people. And frankly, the people who are having all the stress put on them probably deserve to have Joe Jamel type features on the stadium or somewhere, names on something, because they're carrying a lot of NIL weight on an annual basis.
Got a couple super chats we'll get to. Money B and Oscar, I see you. Just real quick, couple comments came in that I liked. One day we'll say, man, I remember when 5 stars only cost $1 million. That's very good, Brad. Very good. Also to Ben G, sounds like you can give Chad a raise now off of Ketch's winnings at Texas Card. No. It sounds like Ketch can give himself a raise now. That's key. Remember, that's got to happen first. That has to happen before anything else happens.
From your words to God's ears.
Hey, don't do that. Don't do that. We've learned that lesson. Don't go talking about the rest of us needing a raise. It's Ketch that he needs the raise, not us. Let's go. I think it was Money B first. Super chat, $10. Thank you, Money B. Ketch, if Texas had the GM NFL exec approach you've been pitching, would that be helping with the NIL stuff mentioned?
Well, I think it helps you manage a budget, manage a cap. And I think, again, one of the things that the approach that I would take is agent relationships. That's the world that we live in now. Agents are constantly working their clients, letting other schools know that their clients may be in the portal. They may, next season, things may look different than they do this season. You need someone who has those relationships built in. You don't want to hire somebody or have somebody in place that learns on the job, because that takes years. And that means you're not getting optimal job performance while waiting for somebody to grow on the job. I think Steve Sarkisian's a good example of that. I think he's been growing on the job since he returned back to Texas. And, Texas had to go 5-7 and 8-5 in a year. And nobody liked that. But they didn't have last year without those other 2 years. But wouldn't it have been nice if you didn't? What if the Sarkisian's best was in place in 2022 and 2021? I think you want that from the general manager. You want somebody who can come in and from day one be elite. Be elite because they've been elite. Be elite because this is what they've done in their lives for a long time. It's just my way of thinking about it. Sarkisian clearly doesn't, because the thing is, Sark does so much himself. Sark wants to do all of it. And I think trying to convince Sark. I think when Sark gets older, you'll be able to do this a little easier. But I think telling Sark, look, man, let someone else do the heaviest of lifting. I think he's like, no, I got this. But is Sark really able to work in all of the other areas the way that he needs to at his absolute highest level? I just told Chad earlier today, literally before we came on the air, I was like, today's just one of these days where I feel overworked and overwhelmed, and I just have too much stuff to do. So there's a part of me that was like, I won't be as good on House Divided today as I otherwise could have been. For instance, I didn't have my super chats logged into the system. I had a show at 9. I had a meeting at 10. I had another meeting at 11. Had to get into it with my wife a little bit on some personal matters. The next thing you know, it's 12 o'clock. I haven't answered a single email. I haven't gone through my DMs. I haven't been on Orange Bloods. I haven't been able to worry about the fundraiser that we're doing next week on the site. Like, this is what I go through. That's an itty bitty taste of the stuff that Sark has to do. And I think that it can't be him forever driving the bus on everything. But the thing is, these coaches all want power. And if you were to bring in a guy with NFL general manager or assistant general manager type experience, they're going to want power. And I think for a lot of coaches in college football, the future is going to have to include them ceding a little power. That they're still the number one guy in the program, but maybe they don't need to be the number one, the number two, the number three, the number four, the number five guy in the program. Maybe you have a number two who's a total badass, and it allows you to truly be the best version of number one badass you can be.
Money B, thank you for that $10. We appreciate you. We always appreciate Oscar as well, one of our favorites over there at UT, $4.99. He's right there in the belly of the beast. The problem comes when you miss out on players because you're worried they won't pan out. Recruiting is like gambling. Scared money don't make money.
Oscar, you're not always wrong, but sometimes things are a little more complex than that. They just are. For instance, if I took you to a poker table and you had $10,000 to play with, and it was somebody else's money, and you could play poker or cards or gamble with that money, go be as aggressive as you want to be. And if you lose, there's no repercussions. Okay. But what if it's your last $10,000? What if that $10,000, what if you need 20, but you've got 10 and you lose your entire life if you lose that $10,000? It's easier to say scared money don't make money when you have to be incredibly responsible. And in general, Oscar, I agree with you. And I agree with that general philosophy in life. But sometimes life's just more complicated, nuanced, and dangerous than scared money don't make money. Because sometimes if you're too easy and willy-nilly with the idea of scared money don't make money, you end up living in your car. And then it's like, well, what happened? Scared money don't make money. So you weren't scared when you lost all of your money, and now you live in a van down by the river. Gotcha.
Oscar, thank you for the $4.99. A quick $1.99 from James. Just checking in. Buy or sell, Catch. You still won't do fantasy football this year.
James, I'm out. Thing is, nobody in the league is. I need to reach out to Bill Biddick. Bill, if you're out there.
Oh, no.
No, I am not playing fantasy football. I'm sorry. I did not return your text message.
Okay.
I did see it. I guess it wouldn't have taken me 3 seconds to type the word no. Apologies. But I'm completely willing to hand the league over, but I'm not playing. No.
Okay. He still says he's out, James. He still says he's out. Thank you for checking.
Catch, I'm going to play fantasy Premier League soccer, though.
Oh, okay. Well, come on. You're only human. I mean, you got to do something, right? Catch, I don't see any super chats, but I'm going to let this chat get you into a little scrimmage discussion. How was Jonte Cook Saturday? Will he start? Who stood out on defense?
Football junkie, Jonte looked good. Jonte had a good scrimmage. I think he'll start. I said this last week. I think the starters in week 1 are going to be Jonte Cook, Isaiah Bond, and DeAndre Moore. And then I think from there, Darwinism will kick in. It will be survival of the fittest. And whichever players in games make the big plays that win games, I think Sarkisian will lean on more as the season goes along. So where he may start out with a rotation of 5 or 6, and maybe it's pretty steady, that won't happen all year. There will be guys that are the cream of the crop that are his best players that will play the majority of the snaps as the season goes. Let me just tell you this. He ain't rotating 5 or 6 guys steadily against Georgia. He's not. By then, he will hope to know who are the guys I can count on against Georgia to play 80% of the reps. Because you can rotate 6 guys against Colorado State. You ain't gonna, I don't know. I wonder how much against Michigan they think they'll be able to do. That's still so early in the season. It will be one of the things that we watch. Who stood out on defense? Sounds like the defense as a whole won the scrimmage. So I know Anthony Hill looked really good. Leona Lafau was a guy that got shout outs. Jade Barron forced a fumble in the red zone. The defense recovered, and that's what you want to see out of Jade. More big plays, more created game-changing plays.
Catch, real quick detail question. Do you know if that play was created out off of the corner or off the nickel?
I don't.
Okay.
Good question. No answer. Okay. My guess is that it's from the nickel. If I had to guess.
When you say fumble in the red zone, it makes me think it was more on the inside, but I just didn't know if we had that detail.
It's like, I don't know that he came screaming in off the outside corner to make that play, but maybe. Yeah. My guess is that he would have made it from nickel. We haven't talked about it. This isn't like who stood out. I don't know if this is a who stood out element. Trey Moore looked good. I think the single biggest thing to come out of the scrimmage is the realization and truth that young defensive tackles, Sadir Mitchell and Alex January, both got reps with the first team defensive tackles. Does that mean they're going to be first team at any point during the season? No. Does that definitively mean that they're going to be on the 2 deep, like from the jump? No. Is it a sign, though, that for the first time in 3 or 4 seasons, that Texas has young defensive tackles that are playing at a level that makes you think, oh, well, no matter what, next year those guys are going to be big factors? Yes. And I'm telling you, it's as positive of a development and as big of a development as anything that's happened at any position in camp so far. They have 5 defensive tackles that will be leaving the scholarship board at the end of the season. 5 seniors. You don't want to go into next year doing what they did this year, which is we need to sign 3 or 4. We need bodies. We need starters. We need impact guys because we don't think we have maybe any. January and Sadir Mitchell being on path to be in the mix this year indicates they'll definitely be in the mix a year ago, and it puts the stress level on what they'll have to do on the portal just a little bit down from what it was this offseason.
Yeah, Catch, I was excited to see that note about January because, I can sometimes do the talent evaluation of like a 12-year-old where it's just all about what you see. But watching Colin Simmons and January together at Duncanville that night whip up on my Waxahachie team, it wasn't just Simmons. I mean, I noticed January so much during that night, and I just kept thinking, man, I know Texas fans are thrilled about Simmons, but I wonder if they'll be excited about January. And that's just a good piece of news early on that, he's making that progress.
Hey, real quick, this isn't scrimmage related. We'll go back to that. I just want to circle back. In the event that you're just tuning in, Fasusi is gone from John? No. I think Fasusi, even though he's set to announce in 9 days, and I think if I had to make a pick today, I would say I think he's going to Oklahoma, although I think it's been really, really close. I don't think Texas has made its big push. And who knows, maybe there isn't a big push. Or maybe in October they'll go to him and there will be a changing of the guard level NIL offer that maybe changes his recruitment. Fasusi's not gone. He might commit to Oklahoma in 9 days, but I'm just telling you, behind the scenes, there's an expectation that the recruiting process really doesn't start until September, October, November, that this is all placeholding. And no matter what a kid says about how strongly committed he is, if in the next coming months, game-changing NIL offers end up in front of those players, no matter how hard they thought they were committed previously, there probably will be some significant second guessing and a whole lot of changing. So that's that recruitment in a nutshell. I think Texas probably has ground to make up if you listen to Oklahoma sourcing and the general vibe of that recruitment, and the fact that I don't think Texas has stressed out and maxed out the anxiety levels yet there. I know they know when he announces. It hasn't altered their plan, though. Their plan is to wait a little bit before they go in guns a-blazing on the NIL front across the board with all of their top targets. So we'll see. I think it's TBA. And I would tell everybody, don't completely pay. Look, Texas can't have the class at once without Michael Fasusi. It may be that they won't get him, which tells a story that I just outlined. But there's a lot of stuff still to go. And this thing will be changing day by day, week by week, month by month until we get to December.
Thank you, John, for throwing in a chat. We got a lot of good chats, and we had some super chats earlier. So there was that one. Let me see if there's anything else that would get us along those lines.
Feels like we're caught up on the super chats.
I think so. I think we're caught up. Yeah, we're definitely caught up on super chats. So Catch, you mentioned the defensive tackle stuff with Mitchell in January. I thought that was important to point out. Somebody, where did it go?
Let me bring this question up.
Okay.
And Michael's got a bunch of questions, so maybe we just need to answer all of Michael's questions. He says, I know it's a zero-sum game. You feel like the scrimmage says more about the D's potentially being really good, or that the offense has a long way to go, or both. I'm more optimistic about maybe where the defense is going. You could have set your watch by the offense is a work in progress. It ended the spring as a work in progress. The idea that it ended the spring in a work in progress and that 10 days into, August and they started in July. So technically, I know we're 12, but the scrimmage was on the 10th. Anyway, don't let me get lost in the weeds. I think I'm most optimistic that the defense seems to have some personnel pieces in place that have solidified, but we'll see. We'll see. Offensively, I'm not worried, but look, you lost Baxter, so that changes things. They're certainly having to kind of figure out from the overall running back position component what that looks like now. How do you fill the Baxter void? And I think we're still in a position where Ewers is figuring out, and the coaches are figuring out who Ewers has the best relationship with. Chad, did you see this? Did you see this? This is so sick. I saved it for you because I didn't know if you had seen it. Hold on. Restream's doing that thing where it takes a second for all of the images to load. But I wanted to show you this. Is this the right one?
Okay. I did see that earlier. That's nice.
This guy wasn't here 12 days ago, or he was, but he'd never practiced in pads. So, yeah, the offense has a long way to go, but that's okay. Texas isn't unique to any of the teams in college football, really. Like Alabama is 5th. They're still figuring out their offense under a new coach. Oregon is 3rd, 1 spot above Texas. I'm sure they would tell you that, hey, you know what? Dylan Gabriel looks really good, but, there's work to do. And the first game's not until almost 3 weeks away. And, Texas is still 4 weeks away from the Michigan game. So there's time that you can work that stuff out. But I I think I lean more towards, I think it feels more about the defense potentially being really good. It is both, but I would just answer the question and actually say between the two options, I do think it's more positive for the defense than anything else.
I believe there is a new super chat in there. Michael's got another one we will get to, but a super chat came in from Benny. Thank you, Benny, for the $4.99. Least quarterback talk going into a season since
2020, when, you know, Sam Ehlinger was the starting quarterback going into his senior season. And probably, you know, I think the thing about last season was the Malik Murphy Arch competition for the backup. But everybody knew that Quinn was going to be the starter. And then the 2 seasons before that, you had Quinn battling it out with Hudson. And then you had Hudson battling it out with Casey. So it's the second consecutive year where the starting quarterback position is just known. There's not a battle at the backup position. But there is constant quarterback talk. But I know what you're saying, Benny. You're not wrong. I think both quarterbacks are fine. I don't think anybody is seeing Quinn Ewers look like Vince Young in 2005 at that point in Vince's career. He's not, you know, you're not coming out of practices going, my God, if Quinn Ewers isn't the number 1 overall pick in the draft, I just don't know anything about, you know, it's not there yet. He's having a good camp. I think the thing about Quinn, Chad, that I was thinking about this weekend, especially after Onwar and I did a show on Saturday, Quinn doesn't turn the ball over a whole lot. And there was a point 2 years ago when he was battling Hudson Card when there was a lot of turnovers. And there was a whole lot of, you got to live with the bad in order to get the good. And those are things that you tell yourself to sleep at night. Oh, yeah. You know, he's just going to have some interceptions, but you got to have the interceptions before you can have the touchdowns. That's the thing you tell yourself with young quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. Thing is, when they stop being young and they get older, they stop making those turnovers. And then real quickly, almost without you even thinking about it, you realize that whenever we talk about Quinn Ewers, we never really talk about him turning the ball over anymore. And it was kind of that way last year. He wasn't. It's what made the Oklahoma game such a standout moment in the season. 2 early turnovers early in the game, interceptions. And it was like, whoa. That's not Quinn Ewers. And I was like, well, it was Quinn Ewers in that game. Again, one of the real common themes, I believe Arch threw 2 interceptions on Saturday. So while Quinn didn't have the best day he's ever had in his life at practice, he didn't turn the ball over. At times, I think Arch, according to the people that we talked to, might have looked the apex of Arch on Saturday might have been better than the apex of Quinn. But the basement of the 2 players was that one guy committed multiple turnovers and the other guy didn't. So, you know, I can't, it might sound like small or limited praise. I think it's a big deal that starting quarterback, on any team doesn't turn the ball over much. Like that is the foundation point, right over anything else for good quarterback play. So, I think Quinn's perfectly fine, even if I don't think anybody would come away saying he's the best player on this team. I don't think that's a truth, but it doesn't mean that by the time we get to the season that won't put up numbers that will have people saying that type of thing.
Benny, thank you for that $4.99. We appreciate it. If you want to throw us a super chat, it'll go right to the top of the list. Thanks to over 1,200 folks that are in that Specs chat right now. I kind of dug this one from Michael Ketch, since we are the presidents of the fan club. Let's get to it. Ketch, about a week ago, you agreed with the idea that if Cook didn't step up, he risks getting passed up and could be a transfer risk. Has he done enough so far in summer/fall to ease your concerns?
Yes, to a certain extent, but look, the wide receiver dynamics are going to be decided in games. It's why I said like 5 minutes ago that I think it'll be Jonte DeAndre Moore and Isaiah Bond that will start, they've pretty consistently been the starters. When they go to wide receiver sets to start out, it's been Jonte, it's been Isaiah Bond. When they add a third, DeAndre Moore has come in. But I don't think the Silas Bolden factor has completely been dialed in. That guy, maybe more than any receiver on campus, has stood out in the workouts so far, including the picture that I put up on the full screen a moment ago. He's going to be, that guy's doing that kind of thing. What it means over the course of the entire season from a starting lineup standpoint or from a who gets the majority of the snap standpoint just hasn't been decided. But Jonte looked good on Saturday. Look, it's not an issue of Jonte flashing. Is that guy flashing any superstar upside? Yeah, he does. It's consistently catching the ball. It's consistently doing everything that the coaches are asking of him. It is consistently being an A-plus player every day. Silas Bolden is a fifth-year senior. Jonte Cook is a second-year sophomore. It takes time. And I think Jonte's on the right track, but he's competing against a fifth-year sophomore who came to Texas to put NFL draft tape together that gets his ass drafted. That's why he's here. This is his contract year. I think Jonte Cook sees himself as a three-and-done player, but next year is his contract year. And believe me, there will be a level of seriousness to Jonte Cook going into his third year. We saw it with Xavier Worthy last year. Xavier Worthy looked like a player all year long that knew this is it. I'm going to the NFL. I got to do it now. And I think we're seeing it from Quinn Ewers this year. Anwar wrote a column yesterday on his Sunday Pulpit where part of the primary theme of the first section of the column was Quinn is dialed in and his leadership more than anything else. It's just different and better. Well, it's like, yeah. Remember that question that I asked Quinn Ewers at SEC Media Days? Does this feel like the last time? Does this feel like your last go-round? What did Quinn say? After giving a lot of glory to God, he admitted, yeah, it kind of does. And wouldn't it be cool if it was? So I just think that every time you're talking about players who are playing in their last season versus players who aren't, you're probably going to have the older guy performing at a consistently higher level day in and day out than the younger guy. And I think that's Jonte's challenge. Isaiah Bond's a little older than him. And oh, by the way, this could be his contract year. This is Silas Bolden's last year. So those two guys, I think, are operating with the most serious of dialed in, be great every day. This is it. This is all about getting me to a level where I get drafted and can go into the NFL in the best spot, in the highest ranked spot possible. And it does matter. It will make a difference.
So let me throw this chat in here from Ehi. I feel like I've yet to hear of one practice where anyone raves about Cook. He always seems to be mentioned as an afterthought at best, as someone who had a good practice. Other wide receivers are mentioned often. Ehi, since I am in the fan club, I would point out to you and Catch and everybody, he's been getting the one reps the whole time, right, Catch? He's in that one wave. It's not like we've said he got knocked down to 2 reps at any point. He's been
lining up with the ones every day.
Just thought I'd point it out.
And I kind of raved about Cook in the scrimmage from Saturday. Like, he was really good. He was really good. Isaiah Bond was really good. Silas Bolden was really good. Whose names didn't we hear really mentioned? Quiet day for Wingo. Quiet day for Golden. Quiet day for DeAndre Moore. In fact, DeAndre Moore dropped, I believe, a long touchdown pass that would have made Quinn Ewers' day a little bit better. So, sometimes when do these practice reports, it's like, what didn't you say? Versus, here's what often happens, Chad. We'll do a practice report and we'll list like 25 players that did positive things. And then when it's over with, someone will go, well, how did this guy look who didn't get a mention? And it's like, I mean, if he he'd done anything that was worth telling you about, we would have told you.
Yeah.
There's never been it's like, hey, catch. How did Trey Moore look in the scrimmage? You know what? I forgot to tell you how one of the starting defensive ends at Texas did. And oh, by the way, he had like 19 sacks in the scrimmage. My bad. No, we usually, when they perform well, we tell you. And when you don't hear their names, you go, okay, Catch told me really what I need to know without telling me what I need to know. So Bond looked really good. Cook looked really good. Bolden looked really good. And that was kind of it from the let's throw praise on the wide receivers from the scrimmage. So if you don't get a mention, you probably need detention.
Yeah. Whoa. Well done,
How about that a little?
Well done, Johnny Cochran. That was
Johnny
good.
Cochran there for you.
Followed the 19 sack scrimmage comment up with that one. That was well done. All right, Catch. Somebody wants to put you on the couch here, so I'm going to let him do it. Scott is in Texas, by the way. Thank you, Scott. Buy or sell, Catch is a glass half full guy. Just in general.
I think definitely buy.
Okay.
I try to be self-aware if I'm leaning one way or the other. You know, gotcha. I think everybody would know the thing about me is I'm always concerned and nervous. I worry. Now in life, that's not always, I'm that way with my teams. For instance, Liverpool has been trying to sign this midfielder from Real Sociedad from the Spanish league for a couple of weeks, and it hasn't happened yet. Now, I think most people would tell you it's going to happen, but deep down, when it's my teams and it's, Cowboys, Liverpool, Phillies, Sixers, I'm always more half empty than half full. It's a coping mechanism, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the Cowboys haven't gotten out of the divisional playoffs for 30 years. How should I go? I have to do these things to sleep at night. But when I look at Texas, I constantly worry about things like who's going to be the linebackers next year and who are going to be the defensive tackles next year. And should they have signed a veteran punter? Like, I think about things. I think about these things more than other people do. So much so that people get annoyed by me. But I also feel like sometimes just by being slightly concerned or negative at all, that it's not me that's not half full. It's you guys. You guys. Because Anwar and I did a show on Saturday, Chad, and we told everybody this scrimmage doesn't matter. We told everybody the offense will probably win next week's scrimmage because that's how these things go. One side of the ball wins one scrimmage, then the next week the other side of the ball wins the scrimmage. We mentioned the positives of January and Sadir Mitchell. Like, we went through all these positives. And the only thing that people heard was Quinn didn't have a great day. The offense didn't look great. You guys are always so negative. You know who shows we like? Listening to people who do shows that never talk about negatives. You're just like, I literally just got asked a question whether or not I thought it was more from the scrimmage that the defense looked a little better than maybe we thought, or was it that the offense was still a work in progress? Which did I lean into? That I thought that the defense was probably maybe a little further ahead than we thought, and that's something that I think people can be optimistic about going into the season at this point. But if you listen to some people, Scott, they will tell you all I do is spew negativity. All I do is half empty stuff. I don't think that's really the case because I'm telling you, I'm like 48, and one of the skills that I've learned in life is self-awareness. Now, not all the time. I'm a work in progress, but I'm constantly asking that question of myself to make sure that I don't lean one way or the other too much out of mood. Because I'll tell you, I came into the show today half empty, but has the entire show sounded like we spent a lot of time talking about Fasusi, and I don't think that was half empty or half full. I think there's some really complicated pieces of discussion about recruiting that exist today that we should talk about, but I didn't look at that as a plus minus thing. I just, it's matter of fact for me. But I think I'm a half full. Scott, I'd like to think so.
Yeah. By the way, Scott, in the last week or so, I have been willing to take lessons from the chat. Now I'm going to give one. When you buy or sell, it's not a question. You don't need the question mark. I'm going to save you from the shift question mark. Ketch is a half full guy. It's not a question. It's a statement. And then we buy or sell. He bought that. Here's another example for you. Brett says, buy or sell. Arch Manning is the QB in 2025, even if he wants to come back, even if Quinn wants to come back for his senior year. No need for the question mark. Catch, buy or sell.
Buy, or Arch Manning won't be here.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And by the way, Catch, you want to talk about a quick study? Look how quick Scott learned it. Scott immediately, buy or sell. Chad has a Slippery Rock helmet in his collection. No question. Well done. Well done. Scott, beautiful. You can also use that on the buy or sell part of 10 Thoughts of the Weekend. Sometimes I see a question mark there and I want to scratch my eyes out. So if y'all could take those question marks away, that'd be great. It's a sell, Scott. It's a sell. I do not have a Slippery Rock helmet. If you find one, send it my way.
There's a poster on Orange Bloods, and he doesn't know this. So LA44, if you're watching, apologies. But he went into the buy or sell questions yesterday, and he asked a really good question. But he didn't ask that in the form of a buy or sell question.
Mm-hmm.
So, Chad, I didn't answer the question.
There you go. See, that's where my little voice was in your head. My OCD just detailed. Yeah.
I think it was a really thorough question. It was like, tell me the 3 things that I should be concerned about in the program. And all I could think was, just ask it in the form of a buy or sell question.
Oh my God. I can still hear when you were doing Yahoo Sports Radio and you'd be doing a buy or sell with a producer or different people or whatever. And it would just get butchered and it would drive me crazy. It would drive me insane where I'm in the car screaming, that's not a buy or sell. What are you doing? Yeah. All right. There you go. And I definitely don't agree with this. Text guide, no. Exclamation marks or nothing. That's not how it works. Although I will prove also that, see, here's what I did. I'm going to try to do it with my own graphic here because we need 20,000 subscribers by the end of this week. Like and subscribe. That's what we need you to do. We've gained a few during the show today, but we need to get to 20,000.
For sure.
Catch is going to be, in fact, it's ironic. I was going to say to Catch today, we need to get to 20,000 by a point in time. My point in time was going to be a little beyond the end of this week. Catch started our meeting today with, we got to get 20,000 by the end of this week. No questions asked, no excuses. Let's go. We need to pump it. So that's what we're doing. We need 20,000 by the end of the week. By the end of Friday's show. That'd be even good too, Catch. By like 2:00 on Friday. Have it knocked out.
Yeah.
20,000. By the way.
Look, you've been going for 2 hours and 8 minutes.
Yes.
I need some substance. All I've had today is this little low, depressing iced tea that now is watered down.
You mean you need some sustenance? I thought you were saying we'd gone over 2 hours and the show didn't have any substance. I'm like, how dare you? What are you talking about?
It's an OBism, Chad. I'm sorry. Went over your head.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I missed the joke.
You gotta be able to know when I'm doing the OB-isms.
Oh, I didn't know. You needing substance is a I'm sorry. I thought you were referencing food. You were making an OB joke. My bad.
Well, I was referencing food, but I was making an OB joke.
Oh, and I stopped all over your OB joke.
You just corrected me because I didn't say the right word.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
But that's just because you can't help yourself. I love that about you, Chad. The thing is, I know you're going. What was it? It's like when people in the chat are spell Aggie, Aggy.
Yes.
And you were like, guys, that's not how Aggie's spelled.
That was for the record, that was a work, just in case you don't know. that was not a shoot.
Okay.
Does it bug me? Yes, because it's small and childish, just like all the crap my people do. But was it legitimate? No, that was a work. I wanted to point it out to them in a sly way, and then you didn't allow me to by bringing it up. So
hold on.
It kind of fell apart.
This is funny. Okay. This is so random. Mike is saying great solid gold in 10 thoughts. So let me tell you what happened before we go.
That was wild.
I was on YouTube, and YouTube decided that one of the things I needed to see was a 2-hour end of the year episode from 1982 of Solid Gold. If they were right, that's exactly what I needed to see. First of all, it was wild to just how many acts they got to show up to do the Solid Gold show was a reminder of how big Solid Gold used to be back in the day.
Yeah, huge show.
Everybody. It was one like legend after another. They all lip sync their songs back in 82. Just nobody sang live ever. It's kind of annoyed me, but it was fun. Watch Daryl Hall jump around the stage, lip syncing, Making My Dreams Come True. And it's like, oh, that sounds exactly like the recorded version. And that probably would make sense. He's jumping all over the place. He hasn't lost his breath yet. Two other things. Solid Gold used to do this thing with the puppets that I'd forgotten about.
Oh, yeah.
And they're kind of freaky.
I forgot about those puppets. I also forgot about the dude. I always remember the woman, Marilyn McCoo or whatever her name was. The guy I'd forgotten about. And when I saw his face, I smiled because I'm like, oh, my God. It reminded me of when I was, whatever I was, was I, 6 or 7 years old, 8 years old watching that show. I used to watch Solid Gold every week.
The other thing is, last thought. This could be my last thought before we sign off. Watching commercials from 1982 television is actually better than the television. The commercials are just out of this world good. There's the Where's the Beef ladies from the Wendy's. And it's like, oh, I forgot. I forgot how this whole thing, it's not just Where's the Beef. They literally drive around in a car to all the competition and scream, where's the beef at Burger King? And where's the beef at McDonald's? And I don't know. I just love the commercials.
That's good stuff. It's good stuff. It made me smile too. Mike, you're not alone. I smiled when I saw it there.
I put it in there because I wanted to share the goodness.
That is fantastic. All right, we'll let Ketch go get his
sustenance.
That was so close. So close to goodness. Sandman earlier put in KD and Curry are two of the best shooters ever. Shout out to Kevin Durant for being the only guy ever with 4 golds. Is that true?
Yeah, and Deonna Taurasi's got 6.
Taurasi does have 6. That's incredible on the women's side too. But yeah, that's obviously before the Dream Team. It didn't exist for pros, but that's still amazing. KD was incredible again during the Olympics. And just real quick from earlier in the show, Catch. Someone says, was anybody else unable to watch the Cowboy game because the NFL Network was playing a replay of Chiefs-Jaguars yesterday? Flintstone foot job. Remember, preseason. If you're Cowboys or Texans, you're not going to see it on NFL Network. You got to go to a network channel. It was on my KNVA, which is the local NFL whatever. But you can't see it on NFL Network if you're in the market. Catch, do you count as just a Texans market?
I think so.
So you got to see it on NFL Network.
I did.
Right. For those of you that are like me, because I'm in the Austin area, and in Austin, I count as both. I'm a Cowboys market and a Texans market. So we don't see either of those games on NFL Network. Don't forget that. Flintstone Trust me, I watched the entire thing. You don't need to go back unless you really want to. If you want to, that's up to you. But especially the way it ended was not what's great if you're a Cowboys fan. All right, I think we're done. I think we're good. Would you like to go get some substance, Jeff Ketchum?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for liking and subscribing and getting your notifications. Again, we need 20,000 subscribers by the end of the week. This is your challenge.
None of you have subscribed in the last 15 minutes. Hit the button. It's right there.
How many did it?
None.
Oh, none. Well, that's not good.
None in the last 15 minutes.
See, this is the magical thing. This is the likes and the subscriptions are similar in that you can only like each show one time, but you can only subscribe once. Once you're subscribed, you can't do it twice. But what you need to do is tell those coworkers and friends, and there's that guy, that lonely dude right over there in the corner, and he's a Longhorn freak because he's got a signed picture of Reed Boyd right there in his cubicle. He loves the Longhorns. Go tell him to subscribe to Orange Bloods Live. We also will remind you, Football with Friends is coming up at 6 o'clock this evening. You got the Old Fashioned tomorrow morning at 9, and you've got the Modcast tomorrow morning at 10. So check it all out with Orange Bloods Live. Thanks to everybody for jumping in. We're damn near 1,300 folks in that Specs chat as we get ready to close the door. Until tomorrow at noon, we are House Divided.